Hey Book Dragons, welcome back to my channel. I have a book review for you today. Let's get to it. I recently finished reading The Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. This is one of the Discworld books, one of the many Discworld books, but it has a special place in the holiday season. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I just want to say right off the bat that The Hogfather was just such an enjoyable read, and I really hope you guys will take the time to check it out if you have not already. Before I get into the review, and it is a spoiler-free review as always, make sure that you check out the video that I did if you're looking for something more spoiler-filled, more detailed about the book. You can watch the live stream that I did with Dan over at Treebeard's Book Reviews, and our good friend Derry joined us as well for that live stream. So it's a completely spoiler-filled discussion, but we had a great time. I'll leave a link in the cards at the end and in the description below so that you can check out that video if you would like to. And let's get right to it, guys. So, the Hogfather is essentially Santa Claus in the Discworld series. The major differences are instead of reindeer, he has four hogs pulling his sleigh, and actually that's really the only major difference. I mean, he still goes around, he gives gifts to all the children, they write letters to the Hogfather and everything like that. So it is just an absolute hoot. The basic premise of the story is that through some unfortunate circumstances, the Hogfather disappears, pretty much believed dead, and so Death decides that the holiday season cannot go on without the Hogfather making his rounds, and so Death takes over for the Hogfather. And if you're familiar with Death, I mean, this is one of two books that I read that have Death in them. The first one was Color of Magic, which I read eons ago, and now, of course, The Hogfather. And Death is just this really, really interesting character, but he's really only well suited to be Death. He's not that well suited to being the Hogfather. So you can imagine that there's kind of this learning curve that he goes through, but it's really endearing. And Terry Pratchett has this really unique voice for Death in his books, because when Death speaks, it's in all caps. So you always know when Death is speaking because his lines are in all caps. And some of the things that come out of his mouth are hilarious, and so many of them are extremely deep. And so I just love Death as a character. I'm going to talk about some of the other characters, and then we'll go into kind of the meat and potatoes, and talk about what I liked and what I didn't like, things like that. One of the other major characters are these mysterious beings. They're kind of a collective. They all speak as one, they act as one, and it's kind of funny in the book if one of these mysterious beings begins to develop an individual personality, they all of a sudden just spontaneously combust and cease to exist. It's rather humorous. So, it's just a no-no to be an individual among this collective of beings. And they call themselves the Auditors. And so at the very beginning of the book, the Auditors have gone to the Assassin's Guild to hire out the assassination of the Hogfather, and that's kind of where this whole thing starts off. So the auditors are, we don't know a whole lot about them, but they basically want to get rid of everything that may in fact have more power over the human mind than they do. They want to be the only ones that powerful in existence, and so if humans believe in anything else, it just needs to go away. So they've hired out the assassination of the Hogfather, and it's just hilarious. So in the Assassins Guild, the chief assassin has passed off the duties for this particular assassination to Teatime. Now, Teatime, whose name is spelled tea time, you heard that right, tea time, and if you're reading the book and you're wanting to pronounce it tea time, you're not alone, because throughout the book he's constantly having to remind people that it's pronounced Teatime. So everybody else apparently wants to call him tea time as well, but it doesn't go over well with him. So it's pronounced Teatime. And just this hilarious character, extremely sadistic and demented and just a crazed individual. Like, he's very calculating and brutal and cruel. This is the kind of guy that puts together a team, and if somebody on the team is not of any use to him, he just kills them. Or if they enlist some minor person to do this one side job for them, and it doesn't go over well, then he'll just kill that person. Or if he's done with them, he'll just kill them. He has no use for them anymore, and he figures they're not useful at all if they're not useful to him. So it's just this really crazy character, and everybody that works for him is genuinely afraid of him, it seems, because, and who wouldn't be? I mean, you're walking on eggshells the whole time. If you're not proving valuable to Teatime, then you might as well just, have a pine box drawn up and ready to go for you when you're dead. So there's Teatime. He's quite the interesting character. And then there is Susan. Now, Susan is Death's granddaughter, adopted granddaughter. Now, this is where it may have been helpful to have read another book in the series called Soul Music. From what I understand, this is kind of where Susan first appears. She is the daughter of Mort, who I guess was a Death in training in the book Mort, and so by virtue of the fact that he was Death, he was kind of a son to Death, and so she's his granddaughter. She's granted some of the powers of Death by virtue of being his adopted family member. So when you can imagine when she finds out that her grandfather is trying to stand in for the Hogfather, that doesn't go over well. She is a governess, and there's some Mary Poppins analogies, and there's some jokes about Mary Poppins in the story as well, because she doesn't want to be thought of as Mary Poppins. She wants to be somebody different, but she is a governess, and she's slated to watch over these two children in a particular household, and they have nightmares, and they see boogeymen behind doors and under their bed, and she brings out a stoking rod that you would use in a fireplace and eliminates the boogeyman. So she makes the kids happy, and then all of a sudden she finds out that her grandfather is trying to stand in for Death, and she's not happy. Also, one of the most hilarious things in this book is there is a death of rats. So you've got death for humans, but apparently rats have their own death as well. So you've got this little rat skeleton going around in this cloak, and the only thing he says is squeak. But every time he says squeak, it's extremely nuanced, and and you really only know that from the people around him, of course, or the crow that likes to eat eyeballs, or thinks that everything is eyeballs. It's just hilarious. The crow is hungry. He probably hasn't eaten in a good while, and he's looking for some eyeballs. But anyway, he can interpret what the Death of Rats says, and other people kind of understand the Death of Rats as well. It's absolutely hilarious. I love the Death of Rats. Just a perfect addition to the story. You also got Nobby from the City Watch who shows up. He's one of the officers of the City Watch, and he just has some really hilarious moments and lines in this book. I was so happy to see him show up because the first Discworld I read this year was back in November, and that was Guards, and of course Nobby was in that book. So I was really glad to see him pop up, and he's just always a riot. Sitting on the Hogfather's lap and trying to figure out what he wants for Hog's Watch, which is the equivalent of Christmas in the Discworld. Hog's Watch is Christmas, and it's just absolutely hilarious watching him try to figure out how to tell the Hogfather what he wants. Just hilarious. So he's really funny. And then there's just a whole bunch of random gods and goddesses that start popping up, and fairies of different kinds for doing various different things. And I won't go into why they pop up, but there is a very good reason why they are popping up. The power of belief in this world is very potent, and pretty much everything that you can think of or dream into existence can actually become reality, and it frequently does. You've got the oh god of hangovers, and not the god of hangovers, mind you, the oh god of hangovers. Because when you got a hangover, what do you say? Oh god, my head. So, not that I would know. I've technically I've never been hungover, but I know people who have, and that's the old joke. If you've got a hangover, you say, "Oh God, my head," and so there is the "Oh God of hangovers," just absolutely hilarious. There's the Veruca gnome, who's basically the fairy of fungus, and you've got the tooth fairy actually physically exists in this world, and you've got other fairies that are kind of filling in for the tooth fairy, like a tooth fairy crew. It's absolutely hilarious. Just all the hilarity that goes on when all of these fairies and gods start popping into being. There's the cheerfulness fairy, and it just, oh my goodness, guys, absolutely hilarious. Loved every minute of it. The god of wine or drunkenness, of course, exists in this world, because you can't have a god of god of hangovers without a god of wine and drunkenness. So, and then you got this weird computer, more or less, called Hex, and Hex is just so funny. Some of the things that come out of its computations, especially when it can't figure something out and it needs more data, it'll tell you it needs to be rebooted. And let's see, like one of the errors that will happen to it is a cucumber error. Cucumber error encountered. Please restart the process. It's just these weird things that come out of its electronic mouth, and partly because it's been hanging around one of these wizards that's just completely bonkers, guys. This one wizard is just completely bonkers. I can't remember his name right now, but he's just absolutely out of his mind. and so he tends to infect people who are around him, including computers that are around him. So the computer starts acting like this one just off the wall wizard, just great. Rid Cully is another one of the wizards. He's kind of the chief wizard in this tale, and he's trying to figure out what this computer contraption is, and just oh my gosh, guys, it's absolutely hilarious. So there's other characters as well that I won't go into, but suffice it to say, there is a huge and fascinating cast of characters in this book. If you're a character-driven reader, you're going to love The Hogfather. Now, what I love about Terry Pratchett's Discworld, what little of it I've read so far, is there's a lot of philosophical themes that he hits on. And one of the big ones in this book is social injustice and social ethics. Because the Hogfather, or Death rather, in his role as the Hogfather, as he goes to all these different places, he encounters things that don't make sense to him why they are happening. In his mind, they should not be happening. For instance, the little match girl, it's her destiny to die and be destroyed. And he's like, that's not right. Everybody should have their chance at life and a pleasant existence. So he goes about to make sure that her fate doesn't await her, and all of these things that could drastically alter the fabric of reality. But Death is a very literal character. He takes things so literally, and he looks at them so black and white that he's like, well, no, this shouldn't exist. So, he runs across people who are poverty stricken and the same thing. He kind of reminded me of Robin Hood in some sense, because he'll steal from the rich and give to the poor, because that's how society should work in his mind. It shouldn't be where some social classes are just at a different status than other classes are. There shouldn't be a class system in his mind, and so he tries to even up the odds, even going so far as to steal all the food from a restaurant and give it to this other group of people, and then the restaurant in turn has to figure out how to cook all different kinds of boots to serve to people. It's just bonkers, guys. It is bonkers, but it is so hilarious. I'm just, you're constantly laughing out loud. Now, I wouldn't say that this is the funniest Discworld book I've read. Guards was definitely a lot funnier, but it was still funny in its own way, and there were statements, there were times that I just laughed out loud. Such a fun tale, and to get to see everything come back to being how it should be, and to see the resolution and find out what was going on behind the scenes, and what Tea Time, or I'll just call him Tea Time because he hates it, what Tea Time's motives were for going about this whole charade. And he had his own plans going on behind the scenes to manipulate everything, and he had his own plans and plot for getting rid of the Hogfather, but he had other plans as well going on behind the scenes. And just to see how all that gets resolved, it was just phenomenal. But I definitely love Death's character, probably most of all in this story, and the death of Rats, of course, and the Crow. That whole trio was really fun. Susan was great too. It was kind of funny seeing her be able to step into Death's shoes for a little bit, because Death is off running his rounds as the Hogfather, so there's nobody to be Death. So just to see how all that plays out was hilarious. I've tried my best not to give you guys any spoilers or no major spoilers anyway, but I think you would do well to read The Hogfather and read it as soon as possible, okay? Because, December's almost over and you want to read this in time for the holidays. It's a quick read, probably 300 pages at most, and it's so much fun. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you read this book before? What are your thoughts on it? I will leave a pinned comment in the comments below where you can post all your spoiler talk, so that we leave the spoiler discussion out of the main comments section. But that way you can do all your spoiler talk if you want to. If you've not read this book, I highly recommend it, and let me know if you're excited to read it. Also, let me know what you've been reading lately. And I think that is it, guys. Make sure you are reading more books. I'll talk to you later.